In this video, we're going to show you how to install the transmission pan on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located on the bottom side of your transmission. On the bottom side of your pan, you're going to locate the drain plug right here. This is a 19 millimeter. You could use a socket in your ratchet. You can also use a wrench if that's all you have. You want to go ahead, loosen this. The other thing you want to pay attention to is having a catch can or a bucket underneath. Now when we pull this plug here, transmission fluid is going to come out. It's always good to wear gloves and safety glasses when you're doing this job. Now I like to have a little bit of inward pressure when I'm unthreading this here. That kind of holds that fluid back. And then once that's loose, just kind of pop it off to the side. Now around the perimeter of this pan, there's going to be a series of 8 millimeter bolts going all the way around. You want to go ahead, I'm going to start and loosen and remove all of the bolts from here all the way around to the other side, and then slowly loosen these here, tipping the pan down. Now, as you can see, our pan is stuck in place. That's not going to drop down on itself. Normally, if we don't have a drain plug and you have this filled with fluid, you'd slowly loosen these here and then pry the side of the pan down, let it open and drain most of the fluid out. Then you remove these here and dump the pan out the rest of the way. But because we have the drain plug, that helps us out tremendously by draining that fluid and just giving us an empty pan to remove. Now I'm going to use a gasket scraper tool here. It has a nice edge on it where I can get between the pan and the transmission and just gently pry this, popping that seal free. Now there is still fluid in here. You want to be careful. Now with our pan off, you want to go ahead and pay attention to the surface around the perimeter. We're going to give that a quick wipe down. Now we want to make sure that before we install our new pan, that our gasket is completely removed. You can see I just peel off a piece of old gasket material here. Can't have that when we install the new pan. So you got to go all the way around the perimeter, cleaning, wiping it down. Now I'm going to use a bit of spray solvent on a rag as well. And we have to make sure that this has no residual fluid on it as well. It has to be super clean. Now I'm going to use my gasket scraper here, and you just want to lightly scrape. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on this because you're cleaning aluminum, and you don't want to mark or damage, dent, anything like that, that surface. You can see just by dragging this across it, it is cleaning up our old gasket material. And once you're pretty confident you got all that gasket material off, we're going to chase it again with the spray solvent. Okay, now that we have the perimeter of our transmission cleaned up, let's go ahead and focus on the pan itself. Now we have our new pan here. Before we apply our gasket material to this here, we want to go ahead and clean the perimeter. Use some spray solvent here. We just want to make sure that this surface is clean, just like we did the transmission itself. Now what we're going to do is just run a thin bead of gasket maker material around the pan. Once you have that gasket maker material on there, we're going to lightly spread this. We want it to have an even coating. It doesn't have to be super thick. Gonna run this around. Now what I like to do is let this set up for about 10 minutes. That is going to give this the proper tackiness it needs, and then once we set it up in place, it'll already have a pre-tack and it'll start curing, and it'll make a nice good dry seal on our transmission. Here we go. Now, if you're replacing your pan at home, it might be worthwhile replacing your filter as well. For this particular video, we're just going to do the pan itself. We're just going to do a quick wipe down here of the drips. Let's go ahead and get our pan up into position. And what we'll do now is start to get some of these bolts put in by hand. I'm going to get this one started here, and I'm going to put one on the other side. This is going to hold the pan in place while we install the rest of the bolts. Now that we have all of our bolts in place, I'm just going to go around the perimeter. I just want to bottom these out. We're not going to tighten them. We just want to make sure that we get them seated up against the pan. You want to do this all the way around the perimeter. And you can see around the perimeter, just as I snug these down gently, just the smallest amount of that gasket maker is squeezing out, and that is absolutely perfect where you just have that tiny bit coming out. If you have globs of it coming out, be sure to come back, run your finger along, clean it off. You don't want to have that stuff hanging off. You just want to clean that up. Makes for a nice, clean job. Now, if you have the ability to do so, you want to go ahead and torque all of these bolts to 35 inch-pounds. In our case here, we're basically just going to gently snug them. "35 inch-pounds is not a lot. Pretty much once it's bottomed out, just give it a little bit, not even a full quarter turn. Now I'm just using a 1/4 inch ratchet. Now, before we go back up top and start putting transmission fluid into this, you want to let this pan gasket set up for a minimum 45 minutes to an hour. Make sure that the drain plug on the new pan is snug. This here is a 17 millimeter and it is tight, so we're good on the bottom side of the vehicle. Now with the hood open, you're going to go ahead and locate the transmission dipstick right here. It is above the oil. Go ahead and pull this out. And I'm going to go ahead and chase this with a rag. Wipe that off and set that aside. Now the next thing we want to do is we're going to grab a funnel here. This has a hose on it to kind of set that down inside. Now we're going to go ahead and put our funnel in there. And this is going to require 5 quarts for this particular model transmission, so you definitely want to research what model transmission your vehicle has. You want to add 5 quarts. Now once we're done with this here, you want to hop into the vehicle, you want to start it up, and you want to cycle the selector on the floor from park all the way through down to the bottom and back up several times, and then go for a road test. And once you're done filling up the transmission, go ahead and grab that funnel. We're going to slide that out and set that aside. Go ahead and insert that dipstick. Now at this point here, we start up the vehicle and you want to go ahead and have that running and in neutral when checking your transmission fluid. So make sure you have the wheels chalked or you have the emergency brake on. You're going to bring this out and you're going to wipe it. Now what we're looking to do here is you want to get that fluid close to the 2 upper dots up here with the transmission warm. Now if you're down at the lower dot, it says add. If the transmission is still cold, you just started it up, it should be in that cold area here, which is the 2nd dot up. Now if you have this vehicle and you've gone for a road test with it and you came back, you want to go ahead and make sure that it is at the hot point, which is between these 2 dots up here. So let's go ahead and insert the dipstick and we're going to check that out, and our transmission is still cold. So right here you can see that our transmission fluid is of that pinkish red color. It is just right at that red dot, or the 2nd dot here, which is the cold level, which is exactly where we want to be. Now if you need more fluid, you're going to go ahead and continue to do the same. insert that dipstick. Make sure that's fully seated. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.